Bihari. Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava. Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava. Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Balabha. Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Balabha. Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Balabha. Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Balabha. Girivardhari. Jasodanandana Braja Jana Dhanjana. Jasodanandana Braja Jana Dhanjana. Jasodanandana Braja Jana Dhanjana. Jasodanandana Braja Jana. Jamunatira Vanachadi. Natira Vanachadi. Jamuna Tira Vanachadi. Jamuna Tira Vanachadi. Jaya Radha Madhava. Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava. Kunja Jaya Radha Madhava. Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava. Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Balabha. Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Balabha. Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Balabha. Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Balabha. Girivardhari. Jasodanandana Braja Jana Dhanjana. Jasodanandana Braja Jana Dhanjana. Braja Jana. Jamunatira Vanachadi. Tira Vanachadi. Jamunatira Vanachadi. Jamunatira Vanachadi. Jaya Radha Madhava. Kunja Bihari. Madhava. Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava. Kunja Bihari. Kunja Bihari. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pariviragacharya Astatarasata Srimad. His Divine Grace is Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gaur Premanandi. We're in the midst of reading about Krishna's childhood pastimes. Chapter 8, Canto 10. The section Earlier in the chapter, there's the name-giving ceremony performed by Gargamuni. Gargamuni was a celebrated astrologer for the royal family, and because Nanda had gone to Mathura to pay taxes, he took the opportunity while he was in Mathura to request Gargamuni to provide a name or names for Krishna and Balaram. But it was thought, if Kamsa comes to know that Gargamuni had this little ceremony, then he'll put two together and come up with, it was the eighth child of Devaki and Vasudeva. So they did it in a cowshed. Very appropriate for Krishna's name-giving ceremony. So Krishna and Balaram were there, and Gargamuni gave 8 verses, 8 teachings or pronouncements about Krishna's and Balaram's life, just by reading his horoscope. Then Nanda went back to Braja. They had a big festival, other brahmanas and, Brijbasi style festival. And then that took place, according to the Bhagavatam, within the first 45 days, according to Vedic culture. That's when the child's name is given, Namakarana ceremony. Then his baby pastimes, and that's this section. So he's gone through crawling, learning to talk. That's very cute, very interesting section. Learning to toddle, then walking, then going around Braja, and after a while he starts doing what is part of the celebrated pastimes of Krishna's childhood is stealing, Makhan Chor pastimes. So that's what we're reading from. And the ladies who are this is Vatsalya Rasa, the parental love. First it was Nanda, then the men, then Yasoda, and then the ladies, and now it's the ladies when he's doing his mischief. You're going to like this. It's really funny. Parental affection for Krishna from the Brijbasis. So they go to her house, Yasoda's home, and this is in Gokul. He's not yet in Vrindavan, he's still little boy. And they're lodging complaints, but actually they have feelings of prema for Krishna, and they're sharing their feelings of prema for Krishna with Yashoda, and she's responding in a very interesting way. So this is text 20. When the milk and curd are kept high on a swing, hanging from the ceiling of the storeroom, and Krishna and Balaram cannot reach it, they arrange to reach it by piling up various planks and turning upside down the mortar for grinding spices. Being quite aware of the contents of the pot, they pick holes in it. While the elderly gopis go about their household affairs, Krishna and Balaram sometimes go into a dark room, brightening the place with the valuable jewels and ornaments on their bodies and taking advantage of this light by stealing. Purport. This is Srila Prabhupada's purport, chapter 8. Formerly, in every household, yogurt and butter were kept for use in emergencies. But Kṛṣṇa and Balaram would pile up planks so that they could reach the pots, and then would pick holes in the pots with their hands so that the contents would leak out and they could drink it. This was another means for stealing butter and milk. When the butter and milk were kept in a dark room, Kṛṣṇa and Balaram would go there and make the place bright with the valuable jewels on their bodies. On the whole, Kṛṣṇa and Balaram engaged in stealing butter and milk from the neighboring houses in many ways. And commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Another day, Kṛṣṇa entered another house, and not being able to reach the pot, he thought of some method. Sometimes he piles up seats, or climbs on a mortar, or on the shoulders of other boys. He knows what is in the pots, hung by string from the ceiling, just by seeing the exterior. If unable to take the contents, he makes a hole with a pole tipped with a sharp iron point. He knows all about this work: how to put a hole in the pot, how to get the yogurt pouring out, how to open the mouths of the boys and let them take to their fill. Even in the dark, it is not impossible. In dark rooms, their bodies and also their jewels act as lamps. Nothing is not known to them. Mother Yasoda, why don't you be more careful? Complainers. When everyone is busy in household affairs, he comes. Though he has a bewitching power for stealing with his soft smile, his baby words, his sweet movements, and bodily beauty, he likes to steal on the sly. In order to find out who is there, he sends other boys as spies to the gopis' houses. Krishna is very naughty. You wouldn't do something like that, right? No. But when Krishna does, it's fun. The gopis like it. Jiva Goswami writes, "You are speaking something amazing. I want to hear his method of stealing." He certainly produces a method for getting in his hands, get it in his hands by using wooden planks, mortars, and other items, such as climbing on the backs of his friends, as described by Bilvamangala. Bilvamangala Thakur, right? Anybody here not know who is Bilvamangala Thakur? Do you know who is Bilvamangala Thakur? You don't know. Okay. A celebrated Vaishnav from South India. It's a long story, but he was previously an impersonalist. He became a Vaishnava. It's a long story how that happened. And he had attraction for Krishna, so he went to Vrindavan. And he lived for a long time, hundreds of years, it is said. He lived near Brahmakund in Vrindavan, and he had become blind. There's some details how that happened. So he would sit and just sing, and Krishna would come and listen. And Krishna would say things. And who are you? And he'd say, "Oh, I'm just a local village boy." But Krishna came to hear Bilvamangala sing. So he wrote many songs about Krishna's childhood pastimes in Braja, and one of those is being referred to here in the commentary. Pita Nisan Balaka Gale, placing his feet on the nape of the neck of a crouching boy, he would reach the pots. So the boy would get down, Krishna would stand on his shoulders, and then he could reach the pots. but the pot is placed very high above him. Reply: he produces a hole in the pot, hanging from a rope by using a stick with a long, pointed end. Doubt: but from far away it is difficult to make a hole which will pour out the liquid contents. The pot will break. Answer: he knows how to do it. How does he know which pot among all the pots has the desirable contents? Answer: by seeing the qualities of the pot. He knows what is inside. Why do you not keep the pots in a dark corner? Answer: he lights up the darkness with his limbs. He does not depend on his jewels. He wears the jewels because of anxiety, in case there is some deep darkness that his effulgence cannot penetrate. If he did not wear jewels, there may be some small traces of darkness remaining. People think that by putting jewels on the thief, you're helping him steal. These rare gems may be stolen by our husbands. They think that he should not wear these ornaments anymore. It is astonishing that though he wears invaluable jewels, he still steals. Then they left. If this is true, hide, catch him, and bring him here, Mother Jasoda. It is not possible, because he comes when it is not possible to catch him, when we are busy with our household chores. Oh, you are all gossiping. What are you saying? My child is innocent. He has knowledge of what is held in the pots because of his intelligence. He has knowledge of others' goods and of time. He is expert in making holes and climbing to inaccessible places. They all laughed because of his power to bewilder them. It should be understood that he was a great thief because he was complete in all qualities. And Sanatana Goswami comments, "Oh, Yashoda, let him steal if he is not able to pay the price." Laughing, they say, "He has gems on his body. How is his stealing possible with the women in the house? He does this while the women are busy. He's a great thief." Commentary on these stealing pastimes. Then there's 2.5 verses, and the second half is they look at Krishna. He's in the room while they're speaking about Krishna, and he's looking very afraid, like Mother Jasoda might chastise him. And when they see his trembling features and his tears coming from his eyes, they smile and they forget everything. So this is text 31. When Krishna is caught in his naughty activities, the master of the house will say to him, "Oh, you are a thief," and artificially express anger at Krishna. Krishna will then reply, "I'm not a thief, you're a thief." Sometimes, being angry, Krishna passes urine and stool in a neat, clean place in our houses. But now, our dear friend Yashoda, this expert thief, is sitting before you like a very good boy. Sometimes, all the gopis would look at Krishna sitting there, his eyes fearful, so that his mother would not chastise him. And when they saw Krishna's beautiful face, instead of chastising him, they would simply look upon his face and enjoy transcendental bliss. Mother Yashoda would simply mildly smile at all this fun, and she would not want to chastise her blessed transcendental child. And Prabhupada's purport. Krishna's business in the neighborhood was not only to steal, but sometimes pass stool and urine in a neat, clean house. When caught by the master of the house, Krishna would chastise him, saying, "You are a thief." Aside from being a thief in his childhood affairs, Krishna acted as an expert thief when he was young by attracting young girls and enjoying with them in the rasa dance. This is Krishna's business. He is also violent, as the killer of many demons. Although mundane people like nonviolence and other such brilliant qualities, God, the Absolute Truth, being always the same, is good in any activities, even so-called immoral activities like stealing, killing, and violence. Krishna is always pure, and he is always the Supreme Absolute Truth. Krishna may do anything supposedly abominable in material life, yet still he is attractive. Therefore his name is Kṛṣṇa, meaning all attractive. This is the platform on which transcendental loving affairs and service are exchanged. Because of the features of Krishna's face, the mothers were so attracted that they could not chastise him. Instead of chastising him, they smiled and enjoyed hearing of Krishna's activities. Thus, the gopis remained satisfied and Krishna enjoyed their happiness. Therefore, another name of Krishna is Gopijana Vallabha, because he invented such activities to please the gopis. Gopijana Vallabha. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, "It is not only that he steals, O Yashoda, blissful on hearing the pastimes of your son, O famous one, he passes stool and urine in the room clean for worship, and thus making it contaminated. He also pulls the woman's braids and saris, proposes marriage to them, and kicks them. You will also earn a lot of wealth through this, son. Now he is stealing yogurt, but when he grows, he will steal others' money and wives. He looks very innocent in front of you." Now, the result of the gopis' loving criticism is stated. Krishna showed fear in his eyes, from fear that Yashoda would beat him. His beautiful face was trembling. The gopis could not help but look at the charming face of Krishna. All was explained to Yashoda, who had become blissful on seeing his face, splendid with many emotions, and with hearing and seeing his exploits, she smiled and had no desire to scold him. Quote, "By my son's disturbance, let them drown in bliss. And when these incidents have come to me, let these stories drown me in bliss. This should be supplied, though unwritten here." This sense should be supplied, though unwritten here. Jiva Goswami, in his commentary, seeing the child in fear, they summarized the acts and told another incident for laughter's sake. He's expert at stealing. He does other naughty acts. He pulls the upper cloth of some elderly, laughing women relatives of the gopis and orders them around like women in his own house. Moreover, he urinates in their houses. They cannot constantly clean up the mess. Please come see this. See, it is he who has done this and not anyone else. They all speak. Now he is sitting quietly. Having described the pastimes filled with prema, Shukadeva describes Yashoda's prema. The result of their scolding him with prema and joking is described. He had fearful eyes. Having heard all the complaints, but being confident, Yashoda smiled very slightly because of the fickle activities of her son and amusing accusations of the gopis. She could not scold him. Instead, she said with affection, "Oh, child, why do you do such things to these people?" having verified what he did, they had come here to scold him. Understanding that his mother was lax, he would come again to our houses and perform pranks. He could not be restricted except by his mother. The Lord is without urine and stool. Glorifying him, remembering him, and hearing about him destroys the impurities of all people. And here's a quote to verify that above statement. This is Rukmini prior to her marriage, this letter that she wrote to Krishna. A woman who fails to relish the fragrance of the honey of your lotus feet becomes totally befooled, and thus she accepts as her husband or lover a living corpse covered with skin, whiskers, nails, hair, head hair, and body hair, and filled with flesh, bones, blood, parasites, feces, mucus, bile, and air. Rukmini. According to the words of Rukmini, though it is not possible for the Lord to have urine and stool for the pleasure of infant pastimes illusory, urine and stool were produced. Okay. Sanatana Goswami. The truth is this. Krishna had a desire to be scolded by his mother, to derive special happiness from his mother's affection. She did not fulfill that desire out of her affection for her son. Yashoda thought, let the gopis drown in bliss by my son's mischief-making. And when such incidents are reported to me, let these stories drown me in bliss too. Though not explicitly stated here, this mood should be understood. We're almost done. This is from Brihat Bhagavatamrita. You familiar? Brihat? You've heard? You've heard, okay. Oh. Okay, that's the Brihat Bhagavatamrita. Okay, we're good. This is the verse, and then Sanatana Goswami's commentary. The pastimes of the Lord are ever existing and purely spiritual, formed of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Of their own accord, those pastimes attracted to the Lord's lotus feet to engage in service, the pastimes are attracted to his feet. Follow him everywhere, supplying the entourage and paraphernalia for each occasion. Commentary. Krishna's pastimes are described as Satchit Ananda Mayi, composed of Sat, eternal existence, Chit, full awareness, and Ananda, pure ecstasy. In this context, the suffix Mayi could mean either identity or transformation. In other words, Krishna's Leelas are a display of Krishna's internal energy and are non-different from him, and are also a manifestation of transcendental variety. We're almost done. There are never any defects in Krishna's Leelas. Even when Krishna seems to behave like an ordinary person. And then Sanatana Goswami quotes all these verses, 10 through 17, there's 8 verses, all the childhood pastimes that seem like an ordinary child's mischief. And then he quotes, Sanatana Goswami quotes Vishnu Purana, quote, to Krishna's feet, his pastimes are attracted by their own desire to serve him, and they are attracted by the service attitude of his devotees. Isn't that nice? Vishnu Purana. I'll read it again. To Krishna's feet, his pastimes are attracted by their own desire to serve him, and they, that's Krishna's pastimes, are attracted by the service attitude of his devotees. The pastimes of the Lord of the universe unfold by their sweet will as he imitates the activities of living beings embodied as humans. And that's our verses for this evening. In many of the pastimes of the appearances of Lord Vishnu in this world, the forms are not human-like, and so for some people that's just mythology. But the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra and the pastimes of Krishna, they appear in human-like form. And so there's a human-like aspect of them. And the human-like aspect of them makes those pastimes very attractive, particularly attractive, because people can relate to them. And part of the problem with people relating to them is they think of them as ordinary. Or when superhuman powers are exhibited, they think that is exaggeration or something. Poetic expressions of literary people that don't at all, just silly, emotional people writing silly things. But the attractiveness, like many people are very attracted to Lord Ramachandra's pastimes. Somebody in Australia was sharing with me, California. Somebody was sharing with me their reading of Ramayana recently, where Lord Ramachandra, they're in Lanka, and Indra had provided his personal chariot and chariot driver for Lord Ramachandra to use, because the Vanas had crossed, just walking across the bridge of rocks. But Indra supplied. So Agastya had come and given him a certain mantra that he would become invincible, and the sun god came and gave him some encouragement that you'll be victorious. So he was ready to go. He called the chariot driver from Indra's chariot and he instructed him, hurry up, let's go. And then he backed off and said, please accept my apology, I shouldn't order you, you're the chariot driver of Indra. And Indra's chariot driver was touched by, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he's apologizing to me because he was so anxious to go kill Ravana that he spoke with like a stern order. So, the gentility of the ideal king. Although he's the personality of Godhead and he's destroying Ravana, which is why he appeared in this world, but he's still exhibiting ideal human character. When we get carried away, we may not be so tuned in to social etiquettes and things. So it's very sweet and appealing that this devotee was sharing, that they were particularly moved. They gave some other examples just from reading Ramayana, Valmiki Ramayana. How the Supreme Personality of Godhead is, without exception, always in the ideal person. But he's not a person, he's the personality of Godhead. But so he shows human-like traits, and it's like very inspiring. Anybody that reads Ramayana is left with the feeling of, I want to live my life more as an ideal person. I mean, there are different ways of articulating that, but it's inspiring of culture and character and virtue just by hearing it and reading it. There's potencies invested in his pastimes that are like that. And then, but there's extraordinary features that show his divinity, without listing what those are. So there's the divinity aspect and there's the human-like aspect. And in Krishna, in Ramayana, there's not hardly any description of his childhood pastimes. I mean, there's Balakanda, but there's not like what did he and his brothers do as little boys, learning to talk and learning to walk and doing mischief and whatever boys do. And who can imagine 4 brothers? They obviously had their pastimes. There's not a lot of description, but there's description here in Krishna book, or in the chapter 8 of Canto 10, and they're so charming, and therefore very celebrated, and seemingly like any other child. I mean, when they're out herding the calves and the cows, and it's described long sections where they're just doing things that little boys do together, climbing trees and imitating the frogs and imitating the birds and calling out names in a well and hearing the echo come back and just swinging and this thing and that thing and stealing each other's lunch bag and tossing it to the other one and running, and the boy cries, and it's just like little boys' activities. But he's the last that we just read is he engages in these for the pleasure of his devotees. He did these pastimes of stealing for the pleasure of the gopas and gopis. Although, it looks naughty. But if it was just like a nice little boy, the same happiness wouldn't be there. There was the nice things that he did. There's this nice description. Mother Yashoda would just point to Nanda's shoes, and little toddler Krishna would go toddle over and pick up his shoes and place his shoes on his head and toddle over, smiling before Nanda Maharaj. And you can just picture that little boy toddling, picking up his father's shoes, smiling before Nanda. His heart melted. But it's not just, when a little child would do that, that's one thing. And when it's the personality of Godhead with a pure-hearted soul, what was that like? But he's enjoying his pastimes, and he's enjoying his devotees enjoying. So he's very clever at how to enjoy, how to have them enjoy, and that was his enjoyment, and his enjoyment was their enjoyment. Although it may look contradictory, because stealing isn't good, and pinching babies isn't good. That was the previous. And passing stool and urine in the temple room, that's not good. And he doesn't have stool and urine, but for pastime purposes. So it's mysterious. And, a scientist that doesn't have any devotion, an atheist, scientist, or whatever person, hearing these descriptions, you silly people. So there's something very wonderful about the message, the purity and innocence Ram's pastimes and Krishna's pastimes. There's a devotee, Vidvan Gauranga. Have you heard his name? Vidvan Gauranga is from South India, Prabhu, and he has taken up the task of translating in readable English not only Valmiki Ramayana, but commentaries of the Sri Vaishnavacharyas, Govindaraja and others. There's multiple others. And so far he's produced Balakanda in 3 volumes, something like the size of our 3-volume Brihat Bhagavatamrita set, like this, because I have a set. And the Ayodhya Kanda is 4 volumes, 5 volumes. And he's going to go through the whole, in each year, Ram Navami is going to be the next Kanda. So I sent him a question. We have a relationship, so he doesn't mind my asking. We hear in ISKCON that Ayodhya is the topmost region of Haridam. So what's the scriptural authority for that? That was my question. Because the authority, those devotees that have made that poster of the material universe, and then Devi Mahesha Haridama Soteshu Teshu, that verse from Brahma Samhita. Goloka Namni Nijadamni Tale Chatasya. So they've made a whole chart with, and then in the border around the chart or the poster, there's the scriptural references for each of the things that's in the poster. So the scriptural reference for placing Ayodhya at the topmost region of Haridam, it's just a reference from Brihat Bhagavatamrita, where Narada is speaking to Gopakumar. They're in Vaikuntha, and he's inviting him to go to Dwaraka and to, on his way, make a little pit stop in Ayodhya. That's far, far above Vaikuntha is Ayodhya. And then after spending time in Ayodhya, you may wish to go on to Dwaraka and meet your Lord, because he's there. So that's the reference that says Ayodhya is the topmost region. And you look carefully at many paintings or portrayals of Vaikuntha, and Ayodhya is always shown there. So I asked Vidvad Gauranga, are there other scriptural references? And he gave me one. And the one that he gave me is from Padma Purana. No. Skanda Purana. Skanda Purana in Rama Gita section, where it says, it's quoted by Jiva Goswami in his Bhagavad Sandarbha, Anuched 22, because I looked it up, it's there. He gave the Sanskrit. But it says, he has Lagu Bhagavatamrita. We'll come back to Canto 10, Chapter 8 shortly. Lagu Bhagavatamrita is a description of avatars. That's what the book is. And when describing Rama amongst the avatars, it gives the particular yuga cycle during the life of Vaivasvata Manu. It's not that he appears, according to what's written here, it's not that he appears every Dwarpa Yuga, Treta Yuga, but a certain yuga cycle in the life of, or the rule of Vaivasvata Manu. In any case, it says that he is the supreme, he's in the category of Purusha, but he's the supreme Purusha because, the commentary says, because Ramachandra showed his universal form to Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh, described in that Ram Gita section of Skanda Purana. Jiva Goswami is saying like that. So that means amongst the avatars of Vishnu, he's in a very special position. Did you follow all that? Rama is in a very special position amongst the avatars of Vishnu. He showed his universal form to Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, thus indicating, in Vidvan Gauranga's translation of that, which he presents in the final Kanda, it's not published yet, from Valmiki Ramayana, Ram's position. So that's why, what makes Ram special, back to Canto 10, Chapter 8, what makes Ram special amongst the lords of Vaikuntha, Narayana, forms of Vaikuntha, is the personal dimension. Narayana doesn't have a mother and father. Narayana doesn't have three brothers. Narayana doesn't have lots of, there are personal features of Ram's pastimes, Ram's activities, Ram's personality that are highly personal, and the sweetness, the intimacy surpasses that of Haridam, the rest of Haridam. And you keep going, and there's more intimacy, and then maximum intimacy and Braja, and that's what we're reading. So the maximum intimacy gives details that are, that not everyone is privileged to hear. Just like, if you have a really, 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 really close relationship with somebody, they may disclose something that's very private and personal to you. And you don't share it with anybody because it's private and personal. But, they trust you, the confidentiality of that relationship is such. It's like, so that's what Braja is like. It's very confidential. And most people just don't get it. Even if they're told it, they don't get it. The story that Prabhupada told of what's his name? Somebody who was a British government officer who for some period of time was in India. Anyway, Lord Zetland, I think. No, that's not the one. I forget. Somebody wanted to make an appointment to see him. They made the appointment. They went to see him. He's busy. It went on for a couple of hours. He's busy, and finally the person became impatient. They went inside when the secretary wasn't watching, and his grandson was climbing on his back. Big government officer that you have to wait for a couple of hours to get to see him. And he was busy. He was busy with his grandson playing horsey. Giddy up, Granddad. Pow. Ooh. Those are confidential things that worldly people just aren't privileged to experience. And Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan are like that. There's the majesty just goes down and the intimacy goes up. And hearing them, we need the assistance of our acharyas, so we don't just think of them as cute little child things. He's in full bliss and knowledge and the source of everything. And tomorrow morning there's going to be more of that, like very extensively, because we're hearing another section of Canto 10. But that's tomorrow morning. So, as the hearers from Shukadeva Goswami, we're being encouraged to appreciate the prema and the bliss that goes along with that Braja prema, that the residents of Braja have, and Shukadeva Goswami, the narrator, has, and he gets overwhelmed sometimes just describing all of this. And then on the other side, there's the majesty. And all the while there's the majesty, there's the divinity of Krishna. So we're toggling back and forth between the two, because we don't want to think it is simply, fiction story. It's not a fiction story, not a cute, oh, isn't that nice kind of story. It's the personality of Godhead performing pastimes with his most intimate devotee. So we need to be respectful to Krishna and his devotees. At the same time, the sweetness is abundant. And by hearing, it draws our attraction to that. It's cleansing, and the attractiveness of the attractive person becomes attractive, just like these two quotes saying the pastimes themselves are attracted to Krishna, and the pastimes themselves are attracted to the residents of Vrindavan who are participating in Krishna's attractive pastimes. It's Shakti, Leela Shakti, personified, is attracted to Krishna. So she does whatever Krishna wants, because Leela Shakti is attracted to Krishna, and Leela Shakti is attracted to Krishna's devotees that have this intimate. It's pretty amazing. And here we are in Palatine. Thinking about COVID-19 and what are they going to ask me to do at work tomorrow, and what's my daughter going to want for breakfast tomorrow, and the things of this world. We do our things of this world, but perform your prescribed duty and always think of me. Mama nusmara yudhyata in Bhagavad Gita's language. In Arjuna's case, yudhya, being a warrior, is his duty. In our case, something else is our duty. And we do our duties and always think of Krishna. And these activities that we're doing just now, it's part of helping us to get to the stage where we can always think of Krishna by becoming attached to him instead of forgetful of him. Mama nusmara yudhyacha. So let's see if there's some discussion. What we have been doing is the people in the room can ask their questions first, and then that gives people, the online people, a chance to send in their questions. Go ahead.
Thank you, Maharaj. So, when I was reading this first canto, 10th chapter, right? Krishna bow downs at the feet of Yudhishthir Maharaj before he leaves to Madura, right?
Yeah.
So, Yudhishthir also already knew that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of...
So how do you let him do that?
I did not understand. I wanted to ask...
Is that your question?
Yeah, how should be my mood to understand, because he already knew that Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead.
He certainly knew.
And this is, at least to my knowledge, this is not a pastime.
Oh, it's a pastime.
Okay.
It's a pastime. It is a pastime. He is acknowledging Krishna's happiness. That's what he's doing.
So it's
Krishna's happiness is everything for the devotee.
okay.
So Krishna likes.
Yeah, because my mind gets bewildered thinking all.
And that's because we're in this. We're not intimately connected with Krishna yet. But those that are intimately connected with Krishna, like Arjuna as his friend, when they were friends, they did stuff that was just like, and then he realized his divinity. Oh gosh, I offended you. But it wasn't offense, it was the intimacy of friendship that's above the majesty form of love, as far as Krishna is concerned. So when the majesty overwhelms, then the intimacy subsides. And when the intimacy overwhelms, the majesty subsides. I mean, in its manifestation. The mood is different. It's mood of love. And more intimate is more intimate.
Okay.
And so that's how unity is permitted.
Very nice. Thank you, Maharaj.
Intimacy of love.
Maharaj, one more quick question, Maharaj.
Okay.
The other day, you were mentioning about Goswamis of Vrindavana count their rounds
Yeah.
for us, right?
Sankhya, Purvaka, Gana, Nama, Natibi. It's in the Sad Goswami Astaka.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, what do we understand from that?
They're showing by example.
So, what should we follow from that?
We take a vow and we follow.
So, we need to count the rounds?
Well, we have counter beads, right? And
Yeah.
we have 108 beads, and then
Yeah.
we have counter beads.
Yeah.
Then we do it.
Okay. So, that's...
It's built in. It's just, you don't have to think about it.
Oh, okay.
But we're following.
Okay. Got it. Clear. Thank you, Maharaj.
Maharaj, we know that whenever Krishna appears, he has some purpose. And especially when he comes as Lord Rama or Krishna in a human form, he's attracting all the conditioned souls, especially in the human body. My question is, when he takes or appears as Matsya Kurma, what is he targeting, or whom is he targeting?
Who is he attracting, is your question?
Yes.
It depends. Meaning, to show that, well, there's two answers, two obvious answers. To show that he's not limited by, three-dimensional space. He's not limited by the bodily conceptions of life. He's outside of those boundaries. He exhibits his divinity in different ways. Like Lord Varaha, suitable to the earth falling into the lower regions of the Garbhodak ocean, he assumed Lord Varaha form and lifted the earth with his tusk, because it's not, I don't know exactly why it's considered not clean, but it's considered not clean, and so he lifted it that way. Or Lord Nrsingadev, half man, half lion. So it's not, it was to achieve many purposes at the same time. But he's beyond, the Supreme Lord is beyond our worldly conceptions. And there's a second, very detailed and complex, I can't reproduce it, answer that Bhaktisiddhanta gives to Professor Southers. It's in the biography of Bhaktisiddhanta, Rupa Vilasa's biography, where Professor Southers asks this question, not exactly the way that you asked it, but how do you, you're a learned person, how can you accept that the Lord appears in all these forms? He goes through this very esoteric, very elegant, very philosophical description, saying that the Lord appears in all forms. He is, as the source of everything, he has manifestations in all forms. And he goes through, the evolutionary progress of the forms, as if he's, not that he's evolutionary, or even that he's, asserting evolution as Darwin says is the correct understanding. He's just saying there's different stages of forms of life, and he appears in every one of them. There's not necessarily, the initial premise is there's a purpose of attracting people. But he's exhibiting not for specifically for the purpose of attracting people as much as he's the source of everything, and he's the source of everything means he's the source of everything. There isn't something he's not the source of. So, and he's demonstrating that. But if you want, more detailed and philosophical answer, you can look at that section. Be prepared to read it a few times because it's really way up there.
Maharaj, one silly question actually. Krishna has a name called Vasudev.
Yeah.
Most of the names that we hear of for Krishna that he invoked by his leelas, like Keshava, by killing
Yes.
the demon called Keshi, similarly Madhusudana, and most of the names he acquired, even Govinda with Govardhanagiri. But Vasudeva is not by his leela; it's his father's name, Vasu, and he acquired the name Vasudeva. So I was just curious, how he did not invoke that name by his leelas. That's one thing. The second thing,
you want to know what's the meaning behind addressing Krishna as Vasudeva, other than he's the son of Vasudeva?
right?
That's what you're asking?
Right. How did he acquire?
He
that
acquired
name
it.
Vasudeva?
Okay, let's do one question at a time, because then I'll forget the first one after I hear the second one. There's two. Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes, there's primary and secondary names of Krishna. Primary names are spoken in terms of his relationships with other devotees, like Nanda Nandana and Yasoda Nandana. These are primary names describing Krishna in his relationships with his devotees. So Vasudeva is describing Krishna in his relationship with Vasudeva. Or Partha Sarati, the driver of Partha, chariot driver. So it's a name of Krishna in his relationships with his devotees. There's a second, and that is, in Sanskrit, the term Vasudeva means all-pervasive. So in that case, in that usage of the name Vasudeva, it indicates his position more than it does his relationship. So in that case, it's a secondary name, indicating his position, like Parabrahman, or Purushottama, or Adhokshaja, indicating his position. But it's primary and secondary all at once. Vasudeva, son of Vasudeva. Devaki Nandana, son of Devaki. Okay?
The second one related to that is, to my limited knowledge, that is the name that comes to my mind, which has Deva in the name. Unlike the Govardhana, Keshava, we don't have the Deva in the name. But Vasudeva, it has a name Deva.
I didn't get it. Did you get it?
So the Vasudeva, in the name, there is that syllable Deva, which normally we use for other the rain god, sun god, and etc.
Okay.
So this is the name that has Vasudeva, but most of the other names won't have Deva in its name.
I've not heard our acharyas described like that. I don't know if it's particularly significant. Maybe it is. I haven't heard it. There's probably other names that have Deva in it. I would have to think about it. You have something else? Okay. You have anything? Your mother or daughter? Either of you? Okay.
Maharaj, many people like whom I know, they only instead of reading Srimad Bhagavatam from the first canto, they directly jump to the 10th canto.
Uh-oh.
So, I mean, how to tell them or advise them like it's not the right way?
Well, it depends on the person, but to keep it really simple, supposing you wrote a paper for school, and you wrote an introduction and you wrote a conclusion, and they don't read the. If you had somebody just read the introduction and the conclusion, but not the middle part, will you be very happy?
No.
I mean, so you can say to them. So to help the reader understand the 10th canto, the first 9 cantos they're not optional. There's a sweetness in the 10th canto people are attracted to. I understand. You're attracted to the 10th canto. It's very sweet. But to get the fullness of the sweetness, instead of getting a misunderstanding because you haven't understood what leads up to the conclusion, read the middle parts. The author has written purposefully 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Purposefully. One helps understand, 2 helps understand, 3, and so forth. You don't just like go to kindergarten, then go to college.
Yes, Maharaj.
So, give some simple examples they can understand. It'll help you understand that this graduate study to go through the other cantos and try carefully to understand them, not just jump to the conclusion. Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.
The online questions, you want to read them?
This is from VC. Is it accurate to think that the difference between the various categories of manifestations of the Lord is only in the difference in the levels of intimacy expressed with the devotees?
No. There's rasa and there's other differentiations also.
Okay. Ramachandran, dear Maharaj, Krishna childhood pastimes demonstrates the parental loving expressions with intimacy or affection.
Yes.
So, practicing sadhakas, there is certain tendency to connect at level at only philosophy, rather connecting at heart level. So, question is, the disconnection is due to lack of intimacy or affection with the spiritual speaker or authority of nice, heartfelt pastimes of lordships?
Well, that's not, there are multiple factors. That's certainly a very important entry point of factor. Connection with spiritual authorities. But, our condition is quite covered. And, that's regrettable, but that's the Kali Yuga fact. And so it takes time for cleansing and purification to understand, even if there's very good spiritual connection with our spiritual preceptors, etc. So there's the purification and patience. And Krishna doesn't have to reveal things unless one is qualified and very sincere and dedicated. So we need to develop those, let's say, be enthusiastic and patient at the same time for purification purpose. And that's it? Okay. We're done. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.